Okay, so this is the last part we're going to do on this. We are almost finished with genetics. The only thing I want to cover is sex-linked traits and pedigrees. Okay, so we're going to start with sex-linked traits, then I'm going to explain what a pedigree is, and then we're going to kind of work some regular autosomal pedigree problems. Autosomal. Auto means self, somal means body, so autosomal would be ones that are not sex-linked. And then we're going to do some with sex-linked. So I'm going to show you both. Okay, so what is a sex-linked trait anyways? Well, basically any trait that is found on the X or the Y chromosome is considered to be sex-linked. And we didn't really know about this, but there was this guy, Thomas Morgan, who was studying fruit flies. Why fruit flies? Well, imagine if we were studying generations of humans, how long it would take to get the second generation and the third generation. I mean, because reproductively, when are we reproductively mature? Exactly. So it would take a long time. But with flies, they're really easy to get. They mate fairly quickly because they have very, very short lifespans. They have lots and lots of offspring. And you get a generation like every 3 to 5 days. So they're really more conducive to studying traits that are linked than anything else. So he's watching these fruit flies and he notices that the males, some of them, have white eyes and the females had red eyes. And he's like, Eureka! The Y chromosome, that's where it's at. It's connected to the Y chromosome. Well, then he started to notice in future generations that every once in a while there was a female who had white eyes. And he's like, okay, that's not right. It can't be on the Y if the females have it. Remember, females are XX, males are XY. So he said, okay, well then it has to be on the X. That's the one chromosome they have in common. And he did some Punnett squares. And so we'll do one in a minute. But first, let me kind of get into what those are. Okay. So sex-linked traits in humans are generally found on the X chromosome. And the reason is simple. The Y chromosome just doesn't have as much genetic information as the Y chromosome does. And so anything that's on the Y most often turns out to be terminal. Or fatal to whatever it is. So we don't see a lot on the Y. So we're going to talk about the X chromosomes. Okay, so hemophilia, that's a bleeding disorder. It's found on the X chromosome and it causes you to have trouble clotting when you cut yourself or bruise or whatever. Okay. Color blindness, basically the most common type is red-green. I've got some kids that are colorblind. If you look at this image right here and you cannot see this 8, then maybe you should have yourself checked. Okay. We also have muscular dystrophy and male pattern baldness. You always hear that the baldness of a guy comes from his mother. Well, this is why, because it's on a sex-linked trait. And I'm going to show you what those look like in a minute. Okay. So on your paper, let's do a Punnett square. Okay, so I have drawn a Punnett square in here, and I am going to do some work on it. Okay, so let's say we got mom here at the top. Oh, that's a lovely X. And then we got dad over here on the side, right? Okay, so if we pull these all in together, we've got XX here, XX here, right? What would we have on the bottom down here? That's right, X and Y. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is that you have a 50-50 chance of having a girl or a boy. So far, so good, right? Easy. Okay, but, and just so I can point this out, it's 50-50 every time. So I don't care if you got 15 kids in your family. Every time you have another kid, it's a 50-50 chance, male or female. But let's say, for instance, okay, I lost my mouse again. All right, so let's say, for instance, mom has a disorder. Okay, if mom has a disorder, if mom has this disorder, right, let's say it would be on her second X, and let's say for fun, we'll just do color blindness, and we'll use a little C. Okay, so let's say mom is a carrier. She doesn't actually have color blindness, but she carries the allele for color blindness. Dad doesn't have it. He's perfectly normal. So we come down into our little thing here, and what we're going to see is if we bring that C down, to here, Then we're going to have a little C here, and then this C here. Okay, and what that does is that makes this one normal, this one is a carrier, this one is normal, but this male, because he does not have a backup X to depend on, this male right here is colorblind. And that's how sex-linked traits work. Okay, so we'll erase this, and we will go to the next slide. All right, these are fun. Not fun, but these were just very interesting, and so I included them. Take some time if you want to and look up these syndromes. They're quite interesting, and they're not very common, but they happen during the non-disjunction of sex cells during meiosis. So if you think about when meiosis separates, you know, those two chromosomes come apart during metaphase, then you're going to see that that's when this happens. Those two chromosomes don't separate. All right, so let's move on. This is a pedigree, and I'm going to come back to this one in a minute because I want to kind of walk through who has what, but a pedigree is like a family tree, and it lets you trace a genetic trait, disease, something, all the way through your family tree. So this is how you read a pedigree, okay? All right, so first things first, if you are a male, you will be a square. If you are a female, you will be indicated with a circle. Line between the two indicates marriage, and the line coming from that two, the union of those two, is your children. And they are generally placed in the order of birth. So this man and this woman had 3 children, and the first 2 were males, and the third one was a female. And probably you would see this one marked over here, let's see. This one would be marked with like a Roman numeral I. This would be marked with Roman numeral 2. And the reason is because this is the first generation, second generation, and then you would probably see 1, 2, and then these would be numbered as well. Okay, and that would be, you would be able to identify, like you could say that female 2, 3 did not have this disease. And you'll see here that females are carriers, and sometimes you'll have a pedigree that'll show it half shaded, and if that's the case, that means that that female is a carrier. Okay, all right, so that's how you read that one. And here's a couple of other little interesting things. Okay, let's try again. Okay, identical twins are shown with a triangle. If it's identical, they'll be connected here. If they're not, then this line would be gone. Okay. All right, so here, let's practice one, and then I want to go back and practice the other one. Now, when you do pedigrees, it's really important that you mark them. So if we're looking at this, we see there is a male here who has our disorder, and there's a female here who also has our disorder. So if we read the instructions, it says one type of dwarfism is caused by a recessive autosomal allele. Okay, I'm going to suggest anytime you read these, you say, okay, dwarfism, big D. Okay. Is it dominant? No. So big D would be normal. Okay, so I would always suggest you make a key anytime you do any of these genetic questions. It just makes life easier. Okay, then it says that little d here is dwarfism. Okay? All right. So let's see if we can figure out what kind of problem this is. Well, first of all, we know that this is not a sex-linked trait because we have a male here and a female here. This is what we know. We know that it is probably not dominant because it doesn't pass down to the next generation. So what we can mark is, what do we know? Well, we know that this female has at least one big D. We don't know what this second letter is. We know that this male has one big D. Actually, that is completely wrong. Let's try that again. We know, scrooch, backwards, try again. Okay, we know she has the disorder. Let's try this again. So she has to have 2 little d's. He has the disorder, so he has to have 2 little d's. I'm sorry about that, y'all. Just happens. Okay, this one right here has a big D and something, we don't know what, because this child doesn't have it. We know she carries a little d from her mother because there's nothing else mom can give her. And she's normal, so she has a big D from her father. Pretty simple. We come over here and we know that this one does not have the disorder. So again, question mark. Their son, we know, is heterozygous because he does not have the disorder. He can only get a little d from his dad, and a big D would indicate normalcy. Okay. We always assume whoever marries into the family is normal. So this child right here has a what chance? So how do you figure out what this block would be? Well, you'd have to do, you could do some mathematics. We could do a quick little Punnett square. And if we did, let's see, big D, little d. This would be big D. And if you fill in the squares, we know that he's got a 50-50 chance of being heterozygous. So if he's heterozygous, then this child has a 1/4 chance. But if he's normal, it'll be normal too because of the dominant trait. That was complicated, wasn't it? All right, so let's go back a couple pages and look at those samples. I gotta put the pointer back on. Okay, so let's go back and look at the original sample that I showed you guys. And then we'll go forward again. Okay, so if we were looking here, we see male has it, female has it, so probably not sex-linked. None of the offspring have it. Here's something interesting on this one, though. If you look, okay, so, oh, we want to go back. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, so we can see this one does not have it, this one does not have it. First daughter, second daughter, third son does not have it. They have a son. Fourth daughter, or fourth child, which is a daughter, marries a man. They have a daughter. These two first cousins marry. So you see that double line? That shows that they are related twice. Ooh. And so their child does have it. So it would be fair to assume in this one that that is recessive. In this one, you see a lot of males and females with it, so not sex-linked probably. And I would say probably a dominant trait because it hits every generation. We don't see it down here, so this one must be heterozygous, and you could go from there. Okay, so now we are going to jump ahead to one that is sex-linked. Now, normally I give you a copy of this worksheet, and it's online if you want to go get it. I will post it for you guys to do, and I usually do this first one with you. So if you want to stop the tape here, or stop the tape, pause the video, go get your copy of this from Classroom, and then come back. We can proceed. So let me show you how this works. So I don't know what you know about the royal family of, you guys ever seen the movie Anastasia, right? Where Tsar Nicholas has this little boy who has hemophilia, and this mystical magic man comes in and says, hey, I can save his life. And the wife is like, oh, please save the life. Anyway, it leads to the Russian Revolution. So this is really kind of cool. And it all goes back to Queen Victoria. So we think that Queen Victoria, number one here, we think she was a carrier of this disease, and we think this is where it started. So if you wanted to mark this up, so it says 2 in the thing, let's mark who's who. So anywhere you see an unshaded box, we know that that is a male, and we know that male does not have that disease. So you could go through and mark every one of your boxes that are not shaded with an X and a Y because he's normal male, right? We know she's a carrier. Why do we know that? Because she has a son that has the disease, and he has to get that X chromosome from his mother. So you could go ahead and fill in that he carries hemophilia, and where did he get it from? His mother. Okay, so you could go in and on every one of these shaded mailboxes, you could go ahead and mark that he's a hemophiliatic male because he has that affected X chromosome. And then it's just a matter of going back and figuring out where he got it from, which in this case would be his mother. And you could just go back and fill them in. So like number 2 here, she's clearly a carrier because she has a son with a disease. Number 3, is he a carrier? Is she a carrier? Well, here's the thing. They have a son and a daughter. Son's normal. Why? Because they get it from the mother. So here's the thing. The daughter is going to be a carrier because she has to get this X from him. And then she has children and one of them has hemophilia. And so you just trace it back. So let's go through and fill them in. So let's do this one first. Beatrice. Beatrice is a carrier because she has a son that has a disease. Then we have, let's see, we have our girls here who we do not know if they are carriers or not. So I always suggest that you put both of them there just because she could be one or the other. And as you can see, I have gone through and just kind of filled everything in. I'm going to fill them all in for you. If you don't want to come back to the video, you can always take a screenshot of this, and this would give you your, your answers. Okay.
Call him Mini.
Mini-me. All right, so that is the end of the PowerPoint. I'm going to put some examples up on Classroom, and if you have any trouble, give me a holler. I know it's a lot and it can be confusing. I'm going to suggest also that you might look up Amoeba Sisters and maybe Paul Anderson and watch Bozeman Biology for, I'll put a couple links in on Classroom. So if you need more help, there you go. And that's it. We're done with genetics. See ya!